Hi, I'm John deSteiguer. I'm the president of Oklahoma Christian University. Oklahoma Christian over the years has had fabulous guests on our campus. U.S. presidents, presidents of foreign countries, U.S. senators, and governors from across the nation, Pulitzer Prize winners, great theologians, professional athletes. But today is special. I don't believe ever have we had a braver, more courageous guest than the person that I'm sitting with today. Carlotta LaNier, the youngest of the Little Rock Nine. Mrs. LaNier, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I didn't realize that I was going to be a part of that list of honored people to grace your campus here. But thank you.
Well, Mrs. LaNier, you have upgraded the list dramatically.
Thank you very much.
You honor us and you honor me by joining us on campus today. Education has always been a very important thing for your family. Can you tell me about that?
I can always say that my parents valued education to the point that that's all I ever heard from cradle on, that the road to success was through education. And to be prepared to go through that door, whether it's a crack in the door or the door is flung wide open, that you should make sure that you get the best education and learn as much as you possibly can. So that was just the foundation within my family.
Mrs. LaNier, I understand that you've had several people that have inspired you, especially as a young teenager. Some of those were your grandfathers,
Right.
but also Rosa Parks.
Yes.
I understand that in the winter of your 8th grade year, you actually had a Rosa Parks-like experience on a city bus in Little Rock.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Alexine Duncan was the woman's name, and she had been a babysitter for me as I was growing up. And she was very vociferous about not moving, to the point that the bus driver called the police. And my cousin and I got off the bus and we walked on home. So that was an experience.
Wow.
That was very similar to Rosa Parks. The ending was different, but very similar.
And I have always wondered, how does one become a part of something special like the Little Rock Nine? Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you about the experience where your homeroom teacher talked about an opportunity and then passed a sheet around for people to sign up.
It was right for me, and I knew that I had a right to go to this particular school. So, it was a no-brainer because of the type of education or the type of foundation that I got from home for those first 14 years of my life, that to sign it, yes, this is where I want to go. I want the best education available. So it really comes down to being an ordinary person, doing, in the very end, extraordinary things. I didn't expect what took place.
I want to fast forward now to September 4th, 1957. Right. It was the first day that you and some of your friends were to begin classes at Central High School.
Yes.
Can you talk about what happened on that first day?
There was this mob across the street. People always ask me about that, and I recognized that they were there, and I heard their displeasure, but it didn't mean anything to me. I thought that the Arkansas National Guard was there to protect the citizens of Little Rock, and I surely considered myself a citizen, until I heard the commanding officers say to the white minister, because there were black and white ministers that accompanied us there, said to the white ministers to turn around and send them back home. And the question was, are you saying that you're here to protect us? Or the statement was, we will not allow them to go into the school. So that's when we knew that they were there to keep us out instead of to protect.
2.5 weeks later, several things transpired,
Right.
And then on September 23rd,
Correct.
you all go back.
Yes.
What is your experience this time?
We went into a side door instead of the front door. And I'd like to make sure you understand that there were, the guards had been pulled away on this day. and there were policemen there, 17 of Little Rock, Arkansas's finest policemen. But the crowd had grown to over 1,000. And it was, I didn't see it because we came through the side door and went on to our classes. The crowd the police could not hold them back. So in my third class, which I was in geometry, I'll never forget the policeman. I could see the policeman through the glass door, and my geometry teacher went to the door, and the next thing I know, I was told to pick up my books and follow the policeman, which is what I did. And we all gathered in the principal's office and then was spirited down 3 levels below and put in police cars. And I overheard one policeman say to the driver, "Put your foot to the floor and don't stop for anything." And they had already told us put blankets over our heads and don't come out from under them. But as a 14-year-old, you hear those instructions, but I could feel my heart beating. To be honest with you, that was probably my scariest day because I did not know what was going on. When you can I just didn't know what had taken place earlier. All I knew is what I heard. And when he said, "Put your foot to the floor and don't stop for anything," I knew something was pretty bad going on. This country represented the world when it came down to democracy. And for what was taking place and being broadcast throughout the world, it went against what the world thought of us. We were in a Cold War state with Russia, and Russia is saying, "You are telling me that that's democracy?" With fixed bayonets on kids, and you are denying them that opportunity to go to school. Who are you to tell us how to run our country?
Mrs. LaNier, looking back at your time there at Central High School, what was the most difficult thing for you during those years?
I had been taught a certain way as to how to be respectful, and of all adults. And here there were adults doing something that was, in my view, very disrespectful to any citizen.
Do I understand that your home was even bombed during your high school years?
Yes. In February of 1960 is when my home was bombed. And I thought that was pretty much the last straw for me. From that time, from February until later, until I finished, it was kind of like being a zombie. I was just trying to get through the whole process and receive that diploma.
Were there any particular blessings that you received during your high school years that helped you persevere during this very difficult circumstance?
Very good question. Yes. When you're seeing things happening to you, sometimes you think that all people are feeling this way. But to receive support from various people within the community, the faith community, the political community, not only in Arkansas but in our country, and then to receive letters from people from all over the world, that really said a lot to me. To get support and condolences, in a sense, that we were going through what we were going through there at Little Rock Central High School.
Ms. LaNier, I love your book, A Mighty Long Way, and there's actually 2 letters in there that when you were talking about the letters that you got from all over the place, how they meant something to you, the 2 letters that really stood out for me, one, President Eisenhower's letter to your mom.
Yes.
A very fine, encouraging letter that we are going to do the right thing.
Right.
And then the second was the letter from someone in Denmark who didn't have your address or know your name, and so on the front of the envelope was a photo of you, and it was
Right.
sent to Little Rock and said, "Please deliver this to this
Right.
young lady."
Yeah, that was something. and all of the Postal Service knew who it was, at least
great.
in Little Rock.
So, you graduate in the spring of 1960.
Yes.
You were the first female African-American student to graduate from Central High School.
To be a part of graduation exercise, that's true.
Did you realize how momentous that was then when it happened?
No. What was momentous to me was my completion and receiving that diploma, because that's what it was all about for me. We were all being told what we were doing for, education, for the country, for African Americans and our race and so forth. But that was not why we went to school. We went to school there to get the best education available. And I had achieved that. And I had done well in my classes. When I look back on it, yes, I'm real proud of all of those things, but that was not the reason, to continue. The reason was I needed that diploma to validate all the things that I had gone through.
I want to ask you about your faith.
Mm-hmm.
How was your faith either harmed or strengthened during the adversity that you had to go through, and that of your family's,
Right.
Your family experienced as well?
Our faith played a big part in getting through a lot of things. Individually and collectively, I think that we had prayer. That old statement of Jesus loves me, this I know, even with all of that was happening to me, that's what I kind of built my whole process around, despite hearing the negative things that I heard and felt at Central. I knew that there was a higher power that was watching over me. We had about 15 to 20 minutes prior when we would get to school that we needed to find a place to be before we could go to that first class, and that was chapel. And I thought to myself, with all that's going on around me, I'm going to go to this chapel service each morning as a protective environment. And if these are true Christians that are going to be in there, I should be okay. I felt comfortable. I felt like I was in God's hands and around people that represented their faith in the proper way, or as I had always been taught.
Well, and thank you for joining us in chapel this morning here at Oklahoma Christian as well.
That's wonderful.
I love some of your quotes, Mrs. LaNier. I want to mention one or two here and ask you to comment on them. Here's your first quote. "It takes ordinary people to do extraordinary things. There's a hero and shero in all of us. There is something that everyone can do."
A lot of people want to put us on a high pedestal and so forth, and that's why I say it takes ordinary people, because we were ordinary people. We weren't programmed to do these sort of things. We just knew that what we were doing, or I knew that what I was doing was the right thing to do. And my parents were also, I got that from home, and they are the ordinary people doing extraordinary things, because if you really stop and think about it, and I didn't think about this until I became a parent, they did something extraordinary by allowing me to continue under those circumstances. I think I would have questioned them if they had told me I couldn't go because they had been teaching me certain things for 14 years of my life. But when I really look back on it, they are really the true heroes and sheroes out of all of us is really the parents, because they suffered in many ways.
Here's a second quote.
Okay.
50 years later, we are still talking about some of the same stuff.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that we are still having discussions around race. However, there's been a lot of progress. Okay, I think that we need as much dialogue as possible about these various subjects. And to be honest with you, I never thought that 50 plus years later I'd still be talking about high school. But here we are, doing that. And we have accomplished a great deal in this country. I don't want to belittle that, okay? But that's not to say that we are through, because we're not. There's so much more to achieve here in this country. And I do have a lot of faith in our young people who are a little more open-minded today than those before. The difference that I do see is that they don't know the history, and that's what bothers me. And that's what is the impetus for me to come out and speak to colleges and high schools, because unfortunately they're not getting it. Majority of them are not getting it in school today to understand why they are sitting in a classroom with kids that don't look like them. I really like to encourage each young person to get to know who they are, okay? Once they know who they are, they can do anything that they put their minds to have the confidence to know that this is the path that I want to take, and this is how I need to plan to get that done, and put that plan in place and do it. So I think a lot of it is about themselves and being centered to understand who they are so they can go forward, and and keep an open mind.
I've been with lots of great folks, brave people, courageous people, but I've never been with a hero that is any braver than Mrs. Carlotta Walls LaNier. She refers to herself as an ordinary person. She did extraordinary things. I think she's an extraordinary person. God bless you. Thank you, Mrs. LaNier.
Thank you very much.